So what you want to do after you've created your object is to create a material to go with it. And to do that we need the Hypershade. And there's a couple of different ways of getting to the Hypershade. We can click on the Hypershade icon, or we can go to Windows and Rendering Editors and Hypershade. In there we'll have the Materials view, we'll have the Create Materials view, we'll have the Graph editor area there. We'll also have the preview or material viewer here, and also the property editor. But by default, everything is assigned Lambert 1. If we select Lambert 1, we can change the color here. We can see you can make it darker and lighter. We click on the color and we can use a color picker as well. And that's the basic kind of function of Lambert 1. On the whole, we don't want to use and leave Lambert 1 as a default. We want to create a new material for everything we make. So what I'm going to do here is go into the create area here. I can choose either plain or Lambert. Seems to work fine for most games materials. I'm going to click on Lambert, and in there I've created Lambert 2. I'm going to texture this cube. So I want to call this Lambert 2. I'm going to select it in the materials section, and I'm going to click in this box here, and I'm going to change to the word cube, which will rename it, and it will rename it up here as well. Now in color, if I click on the checker box, I can override the color with the texture. So I could, if I just want to use this material without a material, I can select the object there, and then I can right click over the cube material and click assign to selection, and then I can change the color if I want to, make it darker and make it lighter. But what you'll generally have to do is to create a material for it, and I'm going to override that material by clicking on the checker box and then clicking on file, and then I will also click on the folder next to image name, and in here I'm just going to click on the numbers PNG, number 01, and just double click on that. And there I've got my various different numbers assigned to it. Now there's some faces here. This is working fine for 6 and 5, but I want some other numbers on these other sides. And in order to do that, I'm going to have to project the texture onto these sides, just like you would using a projector onto using a projector screen. So if I click on a face, I'm going to right click on it and go into the face component mode, and I'm going to go to UV, and I'm going to select planar and then the options box. What I want to do is I want to project the material onto this face, and the way to do that is to select what direction I want the projection to come from. In this instance, if I look at the different axes down here, you notice that Z is the axis that's pointing towards this particular face. If I wanted to project onto the top, if I look here, Y would be the direction I'd want to project to, like if I was to project using literally taking a projector and project onto it. But if I want to project onto this side, I look down here and Z is the direction I want to fire that projection. So I'm going to look in here and I've got Z selected, and I'm just going to click apply. And what that's going to do is it's going to give me a little widget there. Now with this I can click on the middle and it'll move it around, or I can take one of the corners and I can scale it. I can also click on this little icon in the corner, and the little widget will come up, which will allow me to do things like rotate it and move it around, a little bit like the kind of widget that you get when you extrude stuff. So what I want to do is everything's backwards here at the moment, so I'm going to just click on rotate, and I'm going to rotate this round 180 degrees so that it's the correct way around. The other thing is I want to create this, rotate it accurately. So if I press Ctrl A, what I should do is get a little or my channel box here, and I can just keep pressing Control A until that appears, and I'm going to rotate this round by 180 degrees, and then I know that that's accurate. What I can also do, if I was picking the number 4 for instance, is I can rotate it this way round and then click in here and make sure it's rotated at 90 degrees and then position it in the correct place. I can then go to scale it and scale the texture material so that it's each time I make this change it gets a little bit better. So one of the things I also want to do is, once I've done this change to the material and I've applied it and I've got it roughly where I want it to be, I might want to make changes to this after that, and that's where I'll need the UV or the texture editor, or what used to be called the UV texture editor. So the UV editor is here. It's this icon in the top right here, or I can go to Windows and go to UV editor, and there I've got my material, which is what it looks like when it's shown in Photoshop, and I've got if I select a face, you'll see that that face shows up here, and that shows how the face corresponds to that particular material or that particular section of the material. If I make the face cover a wider area, I'll start drawing in the 9, and you can see this top edge here. I can go to edge and select that top edge, and you can see how that cuts through the 9 just as it cuts through the 9 on here. And I can select this face and I can scale it so I can make the 4 bigger by making the face relatively smaller than that area of the texture. And I can also scale in different axes as well, so I can make the 4 thinner by taking up more space on either side, or I can make it taller that way. What I can also do is select UVs, so I can go into my select my UVs in component mode, and the UVs will turn up in here, and by clicking the shortcuts of W I can move those UVs around, so that this UV in the top corner here, if I drag it down to the top corner of the 4, it'll pull this over to that corner there. So I can do extra editing of the UVs there. Now, one of the things to bear in mind is that you get multiple UVs per vertex. So if I select the UVs here, this one there, I not only select the UV that's in the top left hand corner of this 4, but I also select the UV that's in the top right hand corner of the number 5, which is this one here. So I have to choose which one I'm moving, because if I select them both as I do through this, and I move one and I've got the other one accidentally selected, it will amend the other one. So I need to make sure that I'm just grabbing and moving the UVs that I just want to adjust. And that's how you do planar mapping on a cube, and also adjust the texture using the UV editor. The other ones that I can use is a cylindrical texture projection. So if I select a cylinder, I'm going to create a Hypershade material in the Hypershade. So I'm going to create another material. So if I go to Maya and go to Lambert, I'm going to click on that checker box again, File, and I'm going to check on Cylinder and Open. And there I've got my preview. Select my cylinder, and I'm going to go into shaded mode to show you a common mistake people make. I'm just going to change this to cylinder. If I select that cylinder and I right click over the cylinder material and assign the material to selection, you'll notice it's got it ever slightly brighter, but it didn't actually show the material. And that's because we're not showing the material in this view at the moment. I press number 5, which is the shortcut to shaded display, and actually what I want to do is press number 6, which will show the texture display. So if you texture materials and you find that they have disappeared or you can't find them, that's often the case. If you press 6, the material will appear. Now what I want to do is apply a cylindrical texture, cylindrical UV map. So I'm going to select these faces here, and then what I'm going to do is I can either click on this cylindrical mapping icon, or I can go into UV and go to cylindrical, and there I'll get my cylindrical texture map. If I want the numbers to go all the way around, I can drag this widget round, or if I just want them to occupy one bit, it'll just repeat the texture on the other side. But in this instance, I want to make them cover the whole of it. But you can see that it's also gone a bit out of shape, so I'm going to drag this down to stretch that this projection to get those numbers looking correct in the correct ratio. And it's as simple as that. So what I could then do is, if I wanted to put a number on the top, I can select these faces here. I can go back to my Hypershade, apply the cube texture, because I might just want a single number on the top. I can go to UV and go to Planar Options box and project along the Y-axis straight down onto the object. Click Apply, and then I could put in the number 5 in the middle. If I want to make further adjustments to that, I can click on these faces, and then I can go to the UV editor, and there those faces have appeared, and I can scale those faces in order to make the 5 bigger, or just do some more sort of targeted repositioning of the texture. And finally, what we'll try is the spherical map. So I'm just going to create another material in here. Going to create a blend this time because it'll be a bit shiny, and then click on the checker box, click on the file icon, click on the folder, and click on world. And now I've got my world material. I'm going to rename this to world. Select my object, right click over world, and assign the material to selection. Now by default, spheres have a cylindrical UV map anyway, but let's just make a mess of this to show how it works. I'm just going to create a planar map just to mess it up a bit. And now if I go to UV, or I can choose UV here as well, and I go to spherical texture, I'll see the spherical texture has been applied, but you'll notice that it's doubling up, and that's because I need to grab these widgets here and make it cover the entire object. So I'm going to grab this and pull it round, and there my texture is applied and stretched across the whole object. And if I want to have a look at that in the UV editor, I just need to click on the UV editor, and you'll see how that's been applied here.